Our final Jazz question, and sit tight because this one's going places. JT Alexander asks, what is it about Rudy Gobert / his play style that makes other players so abrasive towards him? Not that it matters a great amount, but he was picked near last in all the All-Star draft the past 2 years, despite being phenomenal, and not many guys seem to have great views on him, e.g. Draymond Green. Patrick Beverly have spoken out about him this year. Maybe Bev is a misnomer because if you've got a pulse, you've got beef with Pat Bev. I get the Twitter fans disrespecting his game, but the seemingly league-wide fellow player contempt is strange for me.
I don't know that I've gotten the sense that it's league-wide. I'm not surprised that Gobert has, less warm and fuzzy feelings from his fellow players, just because his job is to make their lives difficult on both ends of the floor. So I think that naturally plays into a little bit of animosity because he's the one challenging shots at the rim. He's the one trying to make their lives so much more difficult on the defensive end. He's the one setting hard screens on the perimeter, trying to free up his teammates and pad his screen assist numbers. He's also talked openly about how he feels disrespected, in Defensive Player of the Year conversations, in All-Star voting returns, and all of that. I don't think that the All-Star selection in the draft really matters that much because Gobert doesn't play a particularly flashy All-Star style game. He's obviously an All-Star caliber player. He's obviously an All-NBA caliber player, but he's not creating shots off the dribble. He's not throwing alley-oops for his teammates. Like it doesn't naturally lend itself to that playground style of play. And especially like in a game where the stakes are lower, where until the Elam ending kicks in, defense isn't really being played. Like what is he really going to do to make your squad that much more entertaining or that much better in that setting? So I'm willing to throw that completely out the window and just focus on the fellow players' animosity, which I do feel stems almost entirely from what his role is.
I think you're 100% on the money there. I also think that because the NBA has sort of peddled itself as this bastion of self-awareness, I do think we forget that there is like this rampant sort of male toxicity that still goes throughout it. And Draymond Green made a joke about him crying because he didn't get to the All-Star game one year. Yeah. And the fact that that's still part of it, I do think there are plenty of players.
Is so dumb.
It's so dumb. But there are plenty of players that I think view it that way. They might also think and look at how NBA players NBA players know way more about the game than I do. So this is just not me trying to lecture them. But you mentioned it with the shot creation where it's like Lou Williams could have been in that All-Star draft. And they're going to think that he might be better than Rudy Gobert. Maybe there's some resentment that someone like him, who's not the focal point of the offense, even, yes, we know screen assists, it just exists, Jazz fans. And yes, like you mentioned the defensive stuff, but maybe there's like an animosity there because it's almost out of jealousy that, he shouldn't be billed as a superstar and get that max contract because he's not a shot creator. They're just going to have more respect for those guys. I will, and Jake pointed this out in the Discord chat, there could also be just something we don't know enough about. Donovan Mitchell doesn't even like him. Like that's a thing in Utah that they're going to have to grapple with either moving forward, maybe as soon as this offseason. So there could be something that we're just not very aware of. I would like to say that maybe people are holding grudges for him because of what he did around COVID and joking about it. But one, I don't actually think that's the case. And two, dating back to it is just like no one understood because our country at large did a terrible job contextualizing and covering it and dealing with it to that point and still now. But no one understood how serious it was. And so I'm not excusing it entirely. Like it was stupid. But could that maybe for some players it is? There's also
he's also come a long way personally with how he's talked about COVID and vaccinations and all of that too.
I do think though, and the two more things would be that one, he has been like kind of open, but not open about wanting bigger offensive roles to where I think Tim McMahon did a feature a couple of years ago on him where like he wanted more post ups. And so maybe just knowing people might look at him as like, you're not that player, but you still lust for that type of usage. Could that be it? And I almost feel like I just blanked on what I was going to say about the other one. So I can't remember my second reason. It was at the tip of my tongue. So perhaps that plays into it as well. I honestly don't. Oh, yes, the playoff stuff, because there's been this weird framing that he was an issue for the way that the Jazz have lost these series or struggled against certain teams. And it's an issue among fans, among certain media members. And I'm not someone who just understands like the X's and O's. Like the lengths that I've had to go through to struggle to like read a scram switch in real time is just not something that anyone should have to do. But you can watch the Jazz in the minutes where teams have downsized against them in the past or where they've struggled defensively. And it's never Rudy Gobert's entire fault because he doesn't have the right. And I've watched more closely of past clips of him when someone brought this up. He doesn't have anything behind him. He had no speed or athleticism in front of him for the longest time. Like Royce O'Neal's the closest he's come. And hey, guess what? Newsflash, he still doesn't have it, which is why I also think you can criticize the Jazz for not doing something at the deadline. And I think that contributes to fans, media, and then probably players because of the way this is framed, that he's overrated. And I do think that's where a lot of the animosity is bred from. I don't think it's entirely fair. If you're actually mad at him for the way he's still mad at him because of the incident with the COVID mics, that's probably the one that I respect the most. That it shouldn't be because he was upset he didn't make the All-Star team. Like, oh, we're mad that someone's that emotionally invested in the game of basketball that's been their livelihood, made them millions of dollars, and we still tether this status to All-Star selections, even though we fucking shouldn't. Like, that is just some like grade A, just toxic masculinity that we just need to weed out of here at some point. And I do think this one's probably fine. He just doesn't play like an all-star game type of style. So if that's why they're selecting him last, I really don't care about that. Because if it was, I'm trying to think of like what would be a good example. Like, do you think that Miles Turner, if he made the all-star game, or even Sabonis?
No, he's not going to get picked early. Yeah. But I think it also stems from, there's a reason that players like Kyrie Irving, like Jamal Crawford, get so much respect from their peers. And it's because they've been able to master these elements of the game that are so difficult for everyone to master. And that's not to discredit what Gobert has been able to do and what he's developed into. But even if he has completely mastered those elements of the game, they are more replicable. Whereas the flashy dribbles, those are the things that people grow up trying to learn how to do. Those are the things that get you credit from the very beginning. And so it shouldn't be a surprise that the people who have achieved mastery of their craft respect those elements so much more. I think we've learned from analytics, from team construction, that they might not be as impactful on the end results, but they are sure impactful in garnering respect, either earned or not, from peers, because it's so difficult to mimic them.
I'm with you there too. And so let us know if anyone agrees with that, just if they have their own theory about Gobert. But there are a lot of layers to it, which maybe that explains why, because I feel like there could be so many different reasons. I'm not saying all of them are valid. But yeah.